The FIFA World Cup is about to start. It is called the greatest show on earth, with over 5 billion people following the tournament across the globe. For decades, the FIFA World Cup has gifted fans unforgettable matches, iconic goals, legendary rivalries, and players whose names will be remembered for generations. But do you know, none of this might have existed if it weren't for one revolutionary idea. An idea so ambitious, so risky before it even began. Today, the World Cup fills massive stadiums. Billions watch from homes, bars, restaurants, and city squares. Entire nations stop what they're doing. For 1 month, the world seems to speak a single language, football. But nearly 100 years ago, there was no World Cup, no golden trophy, no global tournament, no dream of becoming world champions. Only a simple question. What if the entire world played football against each other? And the answer to that question would change sports forever. This is the story of how the FIFA World Cup began. To understand how the World Cup started, we first need to travel back to a very different world. A world without television, without social media, without instant communication. Back in the early 1900s, football was already becoming incredibly popular. Crowds packed into stadiums. Children played in streets. Workers gathered after long days to watch local clubs compete. But there was one problem. Nobody knew who was truly the best in the world. Teams could dominate their own countries.
They could win local championships, but there was no tournament that brought the entire football world together. The closest thing was the Olympic Games. Football was included in the Olympics, and for a while, it seemed good enough. But there was a catch. Only amateur players were allowed. Many of the world's best footballers couldn't participate. The sport was growing faster than the system that governed it, and someone noticed. A man named Jules Rimet. Unlike famous football players, most fans today have never heard his name, yet without him, there might never have been a World Cup. Rimet wasn't a superstar athlete. He wasn't scoring goals. He wasn't lifting trophies. Instead, he had something far more powerful, a vision. He believed football could unite people from different countries, different cultures, different languages, at a time when the world desperately needed unity. Remember, this was an era marked by conflict. The scars of war were everywhere. Nations distrusted one another. Borders divided people. Yet football had a unique power. When a ball rolled onto a field, everyone understood the game.
And Rimet wondered, what if the world's nations competed in one grand tournament, a true world championship? The idea sounded exciting, but there was a problem. Actually, several problems. Travel was expensive. Flying wasn't practical. Most international journeys required long voyages by sea. Some countries thought the tournament was impossible. Others thought nobody would care. And some simply didn't want to participate. Yet Rimet refused to give up. Year after year, he pushed the idea forward, meeting officials, making speeches, convincing football associations. Slowly, the dream began gaining support. Then came a breakthrough. The year was 1929. FIFA finally approved plans for a global football tournament. The first FIFA World Cup would take place the following year. Now there was another question. Who would host it? Several countries were interested, but one nation stood out, Uruguay. At first glance, it seemed like a strange choice. Uruguay was small, far away from Europe,
and difficult to reach. But there was a reason, actually several reasons. Uruguay had one of the strongest football teams in the world. They had won Olympic gold medals. Their football was admired everywhere, and perhaps most importantly, the country was also celebrating the 100th anniversary of its independence. Uruguay offered to pay travel expenses for visiting teams. For FIFA, it was the perfect solution. The decision was made. The first World Cup would be held in Uruguay in 1930, but this created a huge challenge. European teams now had to cross the Atlantic Ocean, not for a few hours, not for a day, for weeks. Imagine being a football player. You train your entire life. Then, instead of boarding a plane, you step onto a ship. Your journey takes nearly 3 weeks. The ocean stretches endlessly in every direction. No modern gyms, no advanced facilities, just a moving vessel carrying footballers toward an uncertain future. Many countries decided it wasn't worth the trouble. Some withdrew, others declined the invitation completely. As a result, only 4 European nations eventually made the journey: France, Belgium, Romania, and Yugoslavia. Together, players, coaches, and officials boarded ships and headed towards South America.
None of them knew they were making history. They simply hoped the tournament would succeed. When they finally arrived in Uruguay, the stage was set. 13 nations would compete. Only 13. Compare that to today's World Cups. Dozens of teams battle through qualification. Hundreds of matches determine who reaches the final tournament.
But in 1930, everything was smaller, simpler, and far more uncertain. No one knew whether fans would care. No one knew whether the event would survive. No one knew they were witnessing the birth of a sporting giant. Then the matches began, and football history changed forever.